Mrs. McDaniel,
She was not going to be here tonight.
Mr. Stoffer,
Here.
Mr. Weiledge,
Here.
and Mrs. Sheffel.
Here. Okay, well, can I get a motion to approve the June 15th, 2020 agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Vote, please.
Ms. Adkins,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. Houston,
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer,
Yes.
Mr. Weiledge,
Yes.
and Mrs. Sheffel.
Yes. Commendation and good news.
I'll defer to Dave.
I do only just have one item. This is an alumni spotlight. John Jensen from the class of '82. He's also one of our Wall of Fame members. Has been in the news lately. And there's a link there that you're welcome to look at the NPR interview for Major General Jensen.
I'll add one thing. Is that it, Dave? That's
it. Yep.
Just add for the board to be aware. This was finalized since my weekly update last week, but apparently annually the local Rotary Club likes to recognize a teacher from the local school districts, and including Iowa Western Community College. And so we did a process, I think, similar to what's been done in the past. I put a call out for nominations from our admin team, and we had a handful of those nominations, and then I presented those through a Google poll back to our administrative team, and happy to announce that Jeannie Bartholow, special ed teacher at Titan Hill, was selected. And since then, not only was I hearing good things, and I got to know a lot about Jeannie over the course of the year, but a lot of people really thrilled with her getting that acknowledgement. So she'll be part of what I guess would normally be a luncheon annually each year. So it's just another Zoom meeting. And I don't think they're going to feed us on the Zoom meeting, but she gets to attend that with me on Thursday to be the Lewis Central nominee. So apparently very well-deserved, and definitely from my year of knowing her, I can see that for sure. So just wanted to make that announcement as well.
That is good news. And Joel Beinhoff has also put a comment that says Connor Landau or Lancio. Someone can correct me. Was the high school selection for the noon Rotary?
Yeah, Connor Lancel.
Lancel, gotcha.
Yep.
Thanks, Joel. That news did not come to me, so I appreciate that. I did notice that on the information this morning that it said staff and student honorees, and I was kind of scratching my head. So good to know that we have a student recognized as well.
Yeah, Connor, just a little side note for the board members, I believe placed 4th nationally in the Business Professionals of America in an accounting section.
Wow.
So 4th whole nation competition. So.
And Joel, I suppose that you've been invited to the Rotary as well to acknowledge him?
Yes, and I'll send you the information.
Perfect. Thank you.
Definitely good news. Is there anyone else? Okay, we'll go on to the hearing for specifications, proposed plans, form of contract, and estimated cost for Lewis Central High School auditorium and the CTE project.
Yes, so I'll turn this over to, I believe, Kelly and or Will. But before we do that, just to kind of remind those who have tuned in, we advertised this in the paper according to Iowa statute, that this is a hearing a lot of what the board is about to see is stuff that has already been presented to the board. So it's a recap, if you will, with some updates, but mostly a recap to present for anyone in the public that is interested. So Josh will monitor our chat to see if there are any questions or any thoughts coming forward. But with that, I will turn it over to Kelly or Will. I'm not sure who's taking the steering wheel on this.
Well, I'm probably going to steer the first part and Will's going to steer the next part.
All right.
Just need to go to there we go. So this is really just a description of, I guess, the site shot of where the additions are going to be put on the back of the high school. The darker gray boxes that are showing up here, there you go, are going to be where the auditorium addition is going to be. And then over by the existing woods shop where there's a patio area right now, fenced in, is going to become the construction technology education edition. So that shows you a placement on the site. You can go to the next slide. Okay, here's some of the details about the project. Auditorium right here has the 1,100 seat accessible auditorium being added on. It's going to have a balcony, elevator, and back of house support spaces. To the left there, you can see some of the features of that. There's also a list of the primary construction materials that are going to be used, and Will can talk more about those when we go through the future or the later slides where he actually has some renderings, some images to show. The CTE edition is a separate edition, as you can see, and it also it supports the arts program in that they're going to have a scene building shop in there. They're going to also have storage and a new dust collection system. The one you have is original to the school. This will accommodate the larger shop as well as the existing shop equipment. And again, there it shows what the exterior building materials primarily are. So the out for bids date, assuming it gets approval by the board tonight, is on June 30th at the end of this month. There is going to be a pre-bid meeting scheduled for July 16th, a Zoom meeting, of course. And we will have people that are interested in bidding to tune into that and get on the list to receive an invite by emailing Will Corcoran. His contact information will also be in the front end of the project manual. So that should be, anyone who has that should have no problem getting access. Bid opening is set for July 28th at 2 p.m. It will be a single lump sum general contractor bid, just like we have on other projects. And bids are to be submitted to Lewis Community Schools up at the ERC to Mr. Randy Portray's attention. And then there will be a bid opening at 2 p.m., a public bid opening. So we don't accept any late bids. So that's just a notice there about that. And then we can talk a little bit about the proposed bid alternates, I believe might be the next slide. So currently the way the drawings are set up, and Will correct me if I'm misspeak here, all of these items are shown in the drawings. They are in there. And if on bid day, we decide we need to cut back a little bit, these are some of the options here for bid alternates, but as it all stands now, they're deduct alternates, which means they're all incorporated into the bid documents right now. The first one being the operable orchestra shell towers and ceiling panels. Second one, some multi-purpose room some curtains and theatrical lighting. There's some chain link fence enclosures in the back of house storage areas that would divide out different storage areas. Bid alternate 4 is to remove the mezzanine and maintenance garage in the CTE addition and replace that with open storage. It would not change the overall square footage of the footprint on the ground floor. You just would be minus the mezzanine storage, but you would capture back what was used for a garage. So bid alternate 5 is the paint booth equipment and the associated makeup air unit. This is a project schedule I believe that everyone has seen before, but it's always been kind of combined with the operations building. So this one is specific here to the auditorium and the CTE expansion. And it kind of shows you what we're tracking right now. There is a rezoning application going in tomorrow, and we will submit for building permit application at the end of the month when it goes out for bids. And then there would be the anticipated bid approval at the August 17th board meeting. And then we start planning some site logistics once we have a contractor on board, which, and then there's a submittal process, a very lengthy submittal process that will be ongoing throughout construction, especially for that project because there's so many pieces and parts. It's about a 60-day zoning process, I'll say, and for permits, last we heard they were running about 7 weeks on permit review. So we wanted to make sure and allow enough time for that. We're hoping we can get it back sooner, but we'll just have to see. And then mobilization in September is what we're hoping for on site, and to start construction as well. So estimated construction duration, 24 months. That's till move in. For especially the auditorium, the CTE building will be done probably sooner than that. But until we get a contractor on board and find out, feasibility of using that space before they vacate the site, there's still going to be a lot of heavy equipment moving around that it's going to take quite a while to build the auditorium. So I'll let Will take over.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is just a recap of a slide that was shared, I think, in the last board meeting. And as Kelly alluded to, BVH has been working with Lewis Central Community Schools on not just the auditorium and CTE additions, but also the new ops building. There is an overall project budget for the entire endeavor. And that's what this summarizes. It just shows how we are tracking in the right direction to all of our estimates for all 3 projects, and the site work are all leveled out now. They've all gone through the design development phase. And so we are able to look at this and see that the overall project for all of the smaller projects are within the project, the stated project budget of $30 million. Is there anything that you'd want to add to this, Kelly?
Nope, I think we've talked about that, and we'll talk more, when we get into the ops building next month, we'll talk more.
Yeah, I would just like to add, just to point out and to reiterate that includes contingency amounts within that budgeted amount, not beyond that budgeted amount, and that's somewhat relative to the alternate deducts that are there. Obviously, we never know the final numbers until those bids come in, and so there's some flexibility to make sure that we stay committed to staying in budget with what we've said to the community from the beginning of this conversation with me last August and going forward. So just to point that out.
That's correct.
But just a quick follow-up question. The alternates are included at their cost to get us to our budget total, correct?
The alternates are shown, they are a part of the project cost that you're seeing here in the 14.2 and the 2.8.
What are the value-added considerations that are shown as negatives already?
Those are still some items that, were not totally 100% design going into DD, and also some items that had some flexibility in terms of level of finish and things that could be included within, opportunities to save money.
Okay.
So yeah, we will dive into the design drawings now. Just going to kind of start by highlighting where the CTE is. We're going to look at the floor plan of the CTE first, and then get into the auditorium that has a bit more drawings associated with it. So here you can see the key plan down in the lower corner, or something that you'll see on all of these drawings. It kind of helps orient you in terms of where the addition occurs in the building. And so the highlighted F area is this extension off of the existing wood shop area. And so it's kind of a three-tiered space that works out from the existing school. It's first the wood shop extension, expanding upon that space, providing a bit more, comfort and flexibility. A lot of the wood shop machinery and tools are kind of brought out in phases and stages and put away. And so this allows everything to be put out in its entirety and provide comfortable, safe working clearances for all of that equipment. And then moving towards the left-hand side of the page is the scene shop. And within that scene shop is the paint booth, some paint storage, some small tool storage, some restrooms. And this is where all of the set pieces for the performing arts productions will be created offset. These will go across the parking lot and up a loading ramp that you'll see later on to be able to provide support into the performing arts space. And currently all of those items are housed further away down the site towards the middle school, and some outbuildings that are going to be torn down. Next to the scene shop is the large prop scene storage, and the orange area is just there to indicate where the mezzanine area is. So the floor to ceiling height throughout this building is 20 feet. And then when you're above the mezzanine, it has about 8 feet. So it provides a bit of additional storage space, but then tucked underneath that mezzanine is a maintenance garage that allows some of the immediate maintenance equipment to be held near the high school and used on short notice. If you go to the next page. So again, this is just kind of helping orient people and let them know where the auditorium addition is. And so this is a project that's more easily understood through cross-section. It's a very vertical space. The way that you can see on the right-hand side of the drawing at the top, very small, is the word commons, and that is where the addition will open up into the existing common space. So as you enter into the high school through the front door is where you walk into the commons, and then you'll be met with almost a new secondary front door, which will be the entryway into this entire, kind of theatrical music portion of the building. And so making your way across the page, you first see that there's a lobby, and small footprint lobby and then some vertical running stairs that take you up to the balcony along with an elevator. And then coming out into the main house, you first see the partially elevated seats are called a parterre that allows for the best sight lines from that vantage point. And also you can see the slope of the floor. So we go up only to go back down, which is how we are working around the floodplain constraints. And then the balcony seats above it. And you can see the one of the two depressions that we do have in the floodplain is the orchestra pit. And this is where obviously all of the students that perform in the band would be performing while there's a theatrical presentation going on. And then you can see the stage with the full fly loft above, an extensive system of catwalks that connect everything and really support all of the behind the scenes professional training that would go on and allow for students to really experience what it's like to work in a professional theatrical setting. And then just beyond that, there's that's where you see the restrooms, the dressing rooms, the green room, which you'll see more in plan. There's a mechanical room above that. And then the kind of story and a half tall multi-purpose room is at the very far left-hand side of the page. And so if you go to the next page, again, below you can see highlighted in orange where you're located in plan, but then also highlighted in orange is the portion of that vertical volume that we're cutting through on this plan. So you can see the ground floor plan. This gives you a better indication of the connection to the commons, into the lobby, the stairs that take you up, the auditorium seating, and then there's two corridors that kind of bifurcate at the entry to the auditorium and provide continuous egress around this new intervention into that open field. And that allows students that are in existing classrooms to walk out and egress safely. So beyond there, you can see the stage and then a north-south running corridor that separates the main house from the backstage areas. And that's where you have all of the restrooms, dressing rooms, the green room, costume storage, the back of house storage of materials that belong there. At the top of the page is the loading dock that I alluded to earlier. That is where all of the set pieces that come from the CTE and the scene shop are brought over and then come through a series of overhead doors, and they roll right out onto stage. And then lastly, the multi-purpose room and the corridor that exits out to where the buses will be parking. And so there is, you can see some ramps and stairs out there from the existing grade outside to this newly established grade. There's about 5.5 feet of vertical distance from interior to exterior. And if you go to the next page. So the scope of this plan is more limited. It really just shows this kind of mezzanine level. The parterre seating is what is technically referred to. And then above the multi-purpose room, you can see that there's a small control room that allows that to be turned into a smaller space for performance and also for a very complete level of rehearsal space. So there's mirrors along one wall, show choir, dance performances, theatrical performances can go in there and watch themselves in the mirror and have a full understanding of what they're going to do. And it also allows for a warm-up space. Say during a large show choir event, you can have one group in there warming up while another group is on stage in the main house. It allows for a lot of additional flexibility. If you go to the next page. This is the balcony level, and so the primary thing that you're seeing here is the balcony seating. There's a restroom that's up at the balcony level for convenience during a performance, and then some staircases that connect into the catwalk that allow for a student that's working in the lighting booth in the top of the house to very quickly get tied into the catwalk system. And then some roof access, and then you can see the roof below. And over the stage, you can see there's a spiral staircase, and that is an element that connects what they call the pin galleries that allow for all these different points of control for set pieces to very quickly get you up to this walking flat grid at the top. And that's where all of the loft blocks and the stage rigging gets tied in from up above. And so we've been working with a wonderful group of theatrical design consultants, and really feel like the group that we're working with consults on initiatives like this across the country, and really feel like what we're putting forth in terms of the functional requirements are right at the kind of level of expectation that any faculty member is going to be coming here from anywhere in the country would expect. And a lot of this is due in part to an extensive series of user group meetings that we had with about 50 faculty members, including theatrical, speech, music, the woodshop, really a whole range of faculty members contributed a lot of time and effort and feedback to get every component of this project just right. You go to the next slide. So this shows you the exterior elevation in the context of the existing school. And so the height of the auditorium makes that easy to jump out off the page, but I wanted to highlight the CT in orange just so that was clear where that was. So you can see the view from Harry Langdon at the top, where you see the front door of the school with Lewis Central on lettering at the top of the auditorium. And then on the lower corner, you can see almost a view from Veterans Memorial Highway, and we'll have three-dimensional renderings of both these views here in a second. Go to the next slide. Two more views. The one at the top is from the soccer fields looking back at the building, and you can see both additions. And the auditorium, we integrated a really cool Titan head logo on the side. So the height of the building allows us to act as a billboard, if you will, from the highway. And we wanted to sort of, present itself as a new kind of beacon of the school from a distance. And if you go to the next page, this talks a bit about some of the materials. So we met last week with Principal Beinhoff and Randy, and we discussed some of the exterior materials. And really, like, when you think about it, the building, this particular building, is a pure reflection of what happens on the inside. So there wasn't a whole lot of decision making that needed to be done. We knew that we wanted to work with precast as the principal material because the height of the building, that would allow those elements to be prefabricated off site. They could come in, disrupt, student life in as small of a window as possible. And these precast panels can serve as an interior finish, an exterior finish, the structure, and the thermal envelope of the building. There was just a lot of efficiency and economy in going that direction. And then we wanted to surround the base of the building with a brick that matches the existing school, so that it's not just this appendage that was added on and feels very foreign, but is incorporated into the existing architecture of the building. So you can see a highlight of the existing brick. And then what we discussed with Principal Beinhoff and Randy, where we had a couple of precast colors that we were looking at. These were colors that it was either a silvery gray or a warmer gray, and both of those were, really going to be very nice looking, but not at a premium cost through pigmentation and other color additives. The warmer gray was decided upon during that meeting. It really kind of complements the existing brick very well. And if you move forward. So the next couple of pages are contextual images. First, you can see how the building presents itself from Veterans Highway. And the next is a kind of a nighttime view of that. And then next. This is a little bit of a bird's eye view looking out over the entire campus. Next. Another bird's eye view looking more towards, and you can see the CTE edition in the background. Next. Here's just more of a human scale view of how this new edition is going to look and feel from the soccer field side. Next. And again, a view right on from the fields. Next. Just some kind of more detailed indication of the signage. So it's all going to be a mill finish aluminum channel lettering. And then the Titan head is going to be a powder coated aluminum plate. And the reason why we're so diligent with this is one of the beauties of the rezoning is that it will allow for us to be very descriptive and have some nice signage elements as part of that effort. Next. And so here you can see a photo montage with the Lewis Central High School lettering on top of the precast box that is now going to be peeking over the top of the existing school as you walk up. Next. And then finally, just a parting shot looking out over the entire high school with both additions in the foreground. And that is the last slide.
I don't see any comments from anyone who is watching this from the public. Josh also said none from YouTube. So do any of the board members have any questions?
So the CTE building's exterior is complementary brick.
Yes.
And the lower area of the auditorium area.
Yeah. We actually had a brick. We've had a couple of bricks reps go out there and kind of do a little CSI work to identify the existing brick, and we found it and are able to specify the same brick.
Looking at the surface between the two buildings, we envisioning asphalt or concrete?
I believe
that's all going to be concrete back there, I think.
Yeah.
With traffic flow at this area, looks like we've narrowed down that back drive. Is that still going to work for the buses?
Yes.
Dina's on yet.
Yeah, this is Joe. Yeah, yes, it will. We made sure we had the proper turnaround at the back. So I think we at least have 25 foot of width in its most narrow point. So.
Do any other board members have any questions, or is there any discussion? Okay, thank you very much. We'll go
just
ahead and
what-
close. Did someone else have a question?
Parking, I don't see that parking issue resolution yet. Where are we at with it?
They told us, you mean the extra parking lot?
Yes.
Yes, they told us they're not going to require that now.
Perfect.
That's what they told us. I just want to emphasize that.
It's probably important to emphasize too that makes a large deal of difference. We're in a little bit we're going to be discussing a rezoning application that kind of aligns all of our properties, and our
Right.
rationale. Our rationale had a lot to do with the fact that we are expanding parking quite a bit with the ops center and with that all being one campus. This is good news because we potentially were going to be eating into one of our current practice fields quite a bit. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
so we're pleased with the initial thoughts on this.
Yeah, so that rezoning that we'll discuss later allows us to not have to add the parking, because if all of the property is the same, which it's currently zoned two different ways, then that allows them to count the spaces that you have on the whole site.
Okay, or is there any other questions? Dr. Beinhoff did say no additional parking is good news. So as long as we have enough parking for everyone day to day, that's the main thing.
Hey, Doreen, this is Brian. I do have one more
Sure.
question. Around the funding for this as well as the other project, I had received a few questions regarding, the current state of the state and, the broader financial world. Dr. Knoss, I didn't know if it'd be possible for you to kind of elaborate on kind of what guidance we have been given, and has that changed any through the course of our design and putting together these proposals.
So I'm going to defer to Andrea in a minute to see if she has some additional thoughts. But we've been monitoring, of course, budgetary concerns with the recession from COVID, and we've been paying a lot of attention to the potential for some across the board cuts that really wouldn't impact this. The concern here would be any implications from sales tax, since we're targeting save dollars and bonding against save dollars, which could impact, of course, could have an impact on interest rates. It could have an impact on the length of our bonds and such. But too early to tell specifically what those impacts would be. And I'll defer to Andrea if she has any additional thoughts on that topic.
Yeah, so we have been in contact with Piper, our bond agents, and kind of going through every different scenario. They're obviously updating us quite frequently about what's going on with sales tax, what's going on with interest rates, what they're seeing in different districts bonding. And so we're just keeping track of everything that is going on and watching it. And we feel still pretty confident in going forward with everything from a sales tax bond perspective.
So we feel like we have adequate cushion, and we've adjusted it enough to accommodate any overages and the like.
Yes.
Okay.
There's quite a bit. When I originally brought the proposed budget for these projects to the board back early on in my first year here, we really had built in quite a bit of cushion even then relative to our saved dollars. And in other words, we're leaving good room in here to still have income for other projects, and leaves us some flexibility in how much we bond, and in essence how much we pay cash for, so on and so forth. So there's definitely flexibility that was planned in from the beginning. Now we didn't anticipate COVID, but I think that has paid off, no pun intended, because I think we have the necessary cushion in there to make adjustments accordingly and to still stay with our plan.
Thank you.
Okay, does any other board member have anything to add to this or any questions? Okay, we will go ahead and close the hearing for the specifications, et cetera, for the high school auditorium and the CTE project. And now this is the portion of our agenda. We take comments and suggestions from the audience and need to check to see if there's no one from the audience has said anything. So unless there is a delay, we will, if someone does ask a question or want to address the board, we'll do that at our second time of comments and suggestions from the audience before our action items. So now we have consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Do we have the updated personnel sheet?
We do. Items with asterisks are new since the board packet.
Is there any discussion?
Are the 2 change orders included in the consent agenda?
They are. So if you have any questions, would this be the time, Dr. Knos, to ask those?
It would. We have Randy on, of course, here to entertain any questions. And just to be clear, as I discussed with the board, there were 4 change orders. One was moot because I rejected it at my level, as we're still working through some things. So it was change order 2, 3, and 4. And Randy can speak to any questions that are beyond what I had provided for the board in the weekly update.
On change order 2, it looks like it's a change order to relocate natural gas service to one of our existing buildings behind this middle school.
No, I can clarify that if Randy wasn't on board yet. That one actually is behind the high school. And that would, basically it moved from the building project to the early site prep package because when the gas company came out there, they said, we don't want it reset against the building, and found out that the existing service was in your loading dock, came up through the loading dock, and we didn't want to tear all that up. So we just decided to bite the bullet now and get it located to a spot where it won't be relocated again when the building construction starts.
Okay, that's my misunderstanding or misinterpreting what it talks about the line.
Yeah, I think, Bob, my overview to the board may not have been quite that detailed that Kelly just provided. That clears up probably some questions that board members may have.
Yeah, it just seemed like a very expensive service relocation from my 25 years in the gas utility business.
It is. I don't want to, I think the backup documentation was attached to that. So I don't want to say how much was coming from Black Hills, but they hire a contractor to do their work. And that was probably close to half of that amount, at least. And then there's a lot of concrete removal, more trenching, again, it would have happened when the building was constructed, but it's just happening earlier now.
It's really just a timing change.
Correct.
You know, it just seemed odd. It looked like Morris Excavation was giving us a change order for removal, and looked like the costs from Black Hills were way more than just pipe installation.
Let's see. I don't know. Joe, is Caleb on?
Caleb is not on. I apologize.
So there's also money in that total for Anderson Construction because they're self-performing some of that. So trenching, backfilling, all the crushed rock. They have to pressure test the system again. Let's see.
Rasmussen will do the pressure test, but that utility cost is like 11,300.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, if Rasmus is doing the pressure test, we're doing the excavation, 900 foot of pipe isn't $10,000. I think we could hire our own contractor to install it cheaper.
Joe? I guess I don't know about what
Right.
contractors they allow to do what with their lines.
Yeah, I don't either. I'd have to look into it a little bit further and could provide a better answer tomorrow, likely.
Clearly, that's just to be clear, though. So I want anybody to understand that's maybe listening on with us. That's relative to Black Hills and their utility, and what they're requiring as far as what's involved in the move. Correct?
Correct.
I just don't want somebody to think that that's the bulk of that is our contractor running up a change order on the cost. It comes down to the biggest expense being the utility move. I understand what Bob's questioning, but it's not relative to our contractor. It's relative to Black Hills Energy. And again, the anticipated move was in for the later part of the project, and the change order moves it to the early site prep part.
Correct.
Randy, do you have any additional thoughts?
No, it's 100 feet of pipe, not 900. But nope, I don't have any other thoughts.
But this is Black Hills. Can we tell Black Hills who they can use, or this is just who they contract with, and it's out of our hands?
Well, that was the impression that I got, but I guess I don't know the answer to that because I wasn't the one in contact with Black Hills. But Anderson Construction has been in contact with them on more than one occasion. And they also are helping do some gas pipe sniffing on the ops building site too that they don't own. So.
Okay.
We could also get Jay to come in and talk about that change order and get some backup if we want. Break it down and get some backup from them.
Well, will this delay the what they're working on now?
It actually already has, yes.
Okay, because I did notice in one of the change orders that they want to extend the contract. Anderson wants to extend it by 30 days.
Correct.
So how is that going to work out for bids and moving forward? Is this going to delay anything else?
It shouldn't, no. The surcharge still has to sit out there for at least, I believe it's 6 weeks or so on the high school site and 8 weeks minimum on the ops building location.
So
So
this
if
work
none
can
of
be,
that gets, I'm sorry, go ahead.
this work can be done anytime?
When it's dry enough, yeah. I
Okay.
think the rain this week didn't help either, but
Okay. And then as far as the Black Hills, this was going to be on, this will be taken off the back side or the other side. We're just paying for this, or we're just doing this early. We would have done it later.
correct.
So actually, there's costs that aren't going to matter.
That's
I mean-
correct. I mean, you would have been paying the next contractor to do it. in the
Gotcha.
plumbing
Okay.
pay. Yeah. And he would have had the same discussion with Black Hills. The location of it is such that it might have added a little more pipe on, but it won't have to be moved twice. And that means only one shutdown at the school, and that shutdown's during the summer.
Is there anything else on these change orders that need to be pointed out, or does any board members have questions on those?
And we're comfortable with the 30 days that they're asking for.
I don't think we really have a choice. Again, I'll defer to Randy. I know Randy and I've talked a little bit about that, and that's something that was staring at Randy when he walked on the job to consider with these. But I know the conversations I was involved in and listened to, and Randy was a part of that.
Mhm.
It definitely seems legitimate. I mean, I don't.
Yes. It does.
Yeah.
It is very much legitimate. So, and another comment that was shared with us during that meeting was that the timing of these things the job's happening real fast, and the procurement of these change orders, if there was a way that we can increase that time or shorten that time and get it done quicker, because they're a little bit behind because they've been waiting. So.
Yeah, and we talked about the one thing that our flexibility with meeting during COVID is kind of ramped up our ability to do quicker meetings. So we may have to do that in the future, but just relative to the gas meter, just so we're real clear, since we've had a pretty extensive conversation here, I just, again, want folks to know that this is not an ad. We're of course dissecting the cost primarily coming from Black Hills Energy for the requirement, but we knew this was going to happen. We just didn't know it was going to happen relative to now. And so I think it's just important for our public to know that it's, a lot of times you see a change order like this, you think it's just simply an add-on. This expense was going to hit us just at a different time in the project. So it's just moved up to the early site prep. And, again, I know we're dissecting the Black Hills Energy cost, which I personally am going to bet that there's no way around that. But just to be clear on what the change order is all about.
Do any board members have any questions about change orders, or are we good to go to vote on the consent agenda? Okay, I'm not hearing anyone, so we can go ahead and vote, please.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. Houston,
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer,
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge,
Yes.
Ms. Atkins,
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel.
Yes. Our next item on the agenda is reports. The nutrition report 7.01.
Yes, we have Tracy Watsabaugh with us tonight, and I'll turn it over to her to give her annual report.
Thank you, Dr. Knost. Good evening, everyone. I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to share with you what we've accomplished this past year and what our goals are for next year. What we've done this year is we've developed a vision statement for the Nutrition Services Department. Our leadership team just within our department is comprised of myself, the Nutrition Services Administrative Assistant, Celeste Nelson, and then our high school manager, Matt Peterson, our middle school manager, Michelle Rodriguez, and Titan Hill kitchen manager is Kathy Buchter, and then also our Creft kitchen manager is Mandy Vincent. And the 6 of us meet for an hour once every month. And during these meetings, we work on training, we talk about important events, and then also we work on things like this. And so the 6 of us kind of went through the process and we came up with this as our vision statement. Lewis Central Nutrition Services is dedicated to serving delicious and nutritious meals in a friendly environment that supports student learning and developing lifelong healthy lifestyles. Next slide. This slide represents the total sales for breakfast, lunch, and a la carte for the last 5 years. Obviously, due to COVID, our sales are considerably less than they were in previous years. However, we did see a path or a pattern that we were increasing our participation. And so had we continued school throughout the year, I am confident that we would have seen a small increase in participation in both breakfast and lunch. So that is our goal, is to serve the students and to have more kids eating their meals at school. Next slide. This page represents the finances for the Nutrition Services Fund. On the left-hand column, we have the account negative balances. And what this means is that the students, or I should say the families, have accounts and they enter in money into the family account. And then the students in that family can charge meals to their account, and then the money is deducted. If there's no money in the account, it goes into a negative. And so at the bottom of the left-hand column, you'll see 1920, the total negative balances for all the family accounts in Lewis Central is $6,883.71, which is quite a bit higher than it was the year before. Again, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, families, have been unable to make payments, or they've just not done that. We are still trying to collect the money before the end of the fiscal year, but Celeste has been working with Andrea, and they have a system and they are trying to reduce that amount, but it is, again, due to the pandemic and the situation that we're all find ourselves in. In the right-hand column, labeled Nutrition Services Fund, this represents the fund's ending balance at the end of the fiscal year. And again, due to COVID-19, it's obviously different than the years previous. We are most likely going to be in the negative at the end of the fiscal year. But I am working with Andrea, and together we're kind of watching out for areas and ways that we can recoup from the lost revenue of closing school in mid-March, and then any other additional expenditures that we had due to the early closing. On this next screen, you'll see the proposed school meal prices for the 2021 school year. And I did not list last year's school prices, but it is an increase of 5 cents across the board. So every meal at every location, you'll see a 5-cent increase. And this is determined by a calculation that's provided to me or to School Nutrition Services across the United States, and it's called a Paid Lunch Equity Tool, also referred to as the PLE tool. And I have to complete this set of calculations within the tool. And then the results determine if there's a price increase and how much that price increase is. So based on that tool, it recommended that we increase 5 cents. Next is the Lewis Central procurement plan. And so this is our bids for next year. First I want to talk about is the RFP number 2021-3 for primary vendor. We submitted the bid on the Iowa Department of Education bidding opportunities website, and we had 3 successful bid responses. After evaluation and scoring based on the criteria that we included in the bid process, the intent to award goes to Reinhardt Food Service. And when I submitted this PowerPoint presentation, I also submitted a bid comparison spreadsheet, and it shows side by side the prices, and then the last sheet on the Excel spreadsheet is a summary, and it clearly shows that Reinhardt met all the criteria for the bid, but also was the lowest pricing than the other 2. So we have sent an intent to award the Reinhardt Food Service, and then as soon as the school board approves this, I will follow up with them and make everything final, and we will move forward with Reinhardt. The other 4 companies that are listed on this procurement slide are Dean Foods. We're renewing our contract with them for the 2021 school year. They provide dairy products and any other, and our 8-ounce carton milks. Omaha Paper Company, we're renewing our bids with them for the 2021 school year, and they provide all of our cleaning chemicals and our food safety chemicals for cleaning and sanitizing, our dish machine and our food contact surfaces, things like that. Pizza Hut Pizza, we are continuing that bid contract for the 2021 school year for fresh baked pizza. And Rotella's Italian Bakery will provide our bread for the 2021 school year. So this is kind of this slide represents what we've accomplished this year, our year in review. We installed new washer and dryer at Titan Hill. They were very excited to get new equipment there, something that they use every day. We also introduced Pepsi products at the middle school, but I want to reassure everyone that's out there watching, it's not anything, there's no pop, and there's no caffeinated products. It is all Smart Snack approved. So basically that includes 10-ounce juices, bottled juices. It also includes some flavored water, 0-calorie flavored water. And then we can serve Naked juices at the middle school. Naked is a brand of like a fruit vegetable smoothie. And then also Gatorades, small Gatorades. So those are the types of things that we can serve through purchasing through Pepsi, and then we can offer those at the middle school. This year we implemented Farm to School in all 4 locations. We had some challenges, but we had some successes too. So we're hoping to continue that in the fall during the growing season. We introduced online free reduced applications as part of the online registration packet that students and families fill out annually. This was successful as well. It made things more in line and streamlined because it helps the families make sure that they're filling out every section. It won't let them proceed to the next page or to the next line until that section is completed. So that kind of has helped with, following up and calling the families and getting the information that's required. So we will continue with that online free and reduced applications this year. Again, we developed a nutrition services vision statement. We increased breakfast participation. We're always working on creating new recipes, and then from those recipes, we build new menus. Decreasing food waste is very important as well. We encourage the students to only take the items that they want, but at the same time within the requirements of the school meal program, meaning they have to take a minimum of at least 3 things on their tray, and one of those things has to be a fruit or vegetable. But if they don't like maybe 2 of the other things, that they don't have to take that, and then we're seeing less waste in the trash cans and in the dumpsters. And then I think you're all aware, this year we, when school closed in mid-March, we implemented the summer food service program non-congregate meal service, which you can also call a curbside pickup. So we prepare meals, and we prepare meals on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then we're also preparing and serving on Mondays and Wednesdays. On Mondays, families can drive through or they can walk up to 5 different locations, and they can receive 2 breakfast and 2 lunches. On Wednesdays, they can do the same, drive up or walk up, and they receive 3 breakfast and 3 lunches. And we have Kreft is our main site. They're actually serving the most meals out of all the sites, and they're also our prep location. So all the food is being prepped there. And then we have Chapel Ridge, which is an apartment complex close to Kreft. We have the Grove, which was formerly known as Bluffs Acres Mobile Home Park. We have Malmore, which is a mobile home park as well. And then lastly, we have Valley View Estate Apartments. And so every week we're serving meals at these 5 locations on Mondays and Wednesdays. So far, as of today, I looked, and we have served over 40,000 meals since mid-March. So we're very, very proud and very, very happy with these numbers. I always like to give an update about what new regulations are being implemented in the school nutrition program. These are some of the rules that we are kind of following or we are implementing currently. We now can serve flavored low-fat milk. However, in our Lewis Central schools, we serve all skim milk. We serve skim white, and we serve flavored skim milk, chocolate, and strawberry. And then we're still keeping with the white 1% milk. We haven't introduced any flavored 1% milk. Previously, we had to offer all the grains as a whole grain product, and now we have to just make sure that half of the grains are whole grain. The other half can be enriched, or in other words, white bread. We did make some changes. We started serving biscuits that were enriched because we found out from our student population that they did not like the whole grain biscuits. They said they were dry and grainy. So we did make that transition already. And then also the sodium restrictions. They kind of reduced those, or kind of tailored them back a little bit. We are going to remain at the target 1 sodium restriction until year 2023. And then after that, we'll switch to the target 2, which is a reduction in sodium content in the foods. And that will start in 2024. But they have eliminated target 3. So we only have that 1 reduction, which will happen in year 2024. And then I always like to remind the board and all those watching, all of our meals meet all of the USDA guidelines, and the USDA guidelines and regulations are based on the dietary guidelines for Americans. So we're serving low-fat dairy foods, we're serving whole grains, fresh fruits and vegetables on every meal, and we're also serving lean proteins. So, eating a school lunch is a very healthy meal for all of our students. And this slide, I just, wanted to share with you what our plans are for next year. Again, we're going to continue to serve farm to school fresh fruits and vegetables. All of our schools serve fresh vegetables with lunch every day. So we'll continue to do that. We're going to transition to a new digital menu provider. And a digital menu is basically students, staff, family, parents, school nurses, the health assistants. They can all go to the district website. They can view the menu for breakfast and lunch per school. But in addition, they're able to click on the actual menu item. Let's say it is a bean burrito or something like that. They can click on the bean burrito and then they'll be able to view all of the nutritional content. And again, we have that now, but we are going to transition to a new company, and that will take effect when school starts. We're working on a new employee handbook just for the nutrition services department. In nutrition services, we have a lot of different and very specific rules. For example, no nail polish. You have to have your hair pulled back off the neck, all these different food safety and sanitation rules. And so we wanted to come up with a handbook to give our employees on an annual basis and also our new employees so they knew what the expectations were. We're working on a climate assessment survey for our employees. We want to know, if they're feeling appreciated, if they're happy in the workplace, and what other things we can do to make their work time more enjoyable and more efficient. We're always working on increasing breakfast, lunch, and participation. By having those higher numbers, it's going to help us increase our ability to offer high quality foods and also, purchase new equipment as needed. Speaking of equipment, we are in the process of bidding or approving a bid for new shelving in the district freezer here at Titan Hill. The freezer acts as the district freezer, also Titan Hill's school freezer. So there's a lot of product in there, and shelving will help us organize it and then maintain what we call FIFO, and that's a rotation of the stock so that you're using the oldest product first and the new product is going into the rear, into the back. And then also we're all, of course, working with principals and administration on a plan for return to learn. How we're going to make sure the kids get fed, but in a healthy, safe environment. Does anybody have any questions?
Tracy, I would just, well, first of all, thank you for a really thorough report and for your leadership and the work you do. We have outstanding school food nutrition folks throughout the district, and I've enjoyed getting to know them and visiting the kitchens. Just to reiterate what you'd said earlier, the increase in prices, I don't know that all who are watching would understand that really your budget, kind of a self-funded budget, if you will, is different from the school district's overall budget, but different from our general fund. And so it's not necessarily the district, especially in these, difficult times for folks saying, hey, we're gonna add to the cost. It's really driven by a government program that in essence sets the prices for you by their calculations. Just wanted to make sure that I'm saying that right, and yeah. our folks that are listening are hearing that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Knows, for saying that, because it is not really common knowledge, that the nutrition fund is separate than the general fund or, the school district fund. Our whatever our sales is our revenue. We don't have any revenue that comes from other funding. So, and you are correct. We are required to do these calculations, and then that determines the price increases.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, you mentioned the online menus. We don't have those currently, correct?
We do. We
do.
We do. We use a provider, and we're transitioning providers this summer. Right now, you can go. There's probably no menus there available to view, but yes, we had a similar setup where you could view the menus by school, by breakfast and lunch, and then you could click on it and see the nutritional content. But we're switching to a new provider, so it's going to look a little bit different and may have some different steps or clicks, so you say, to get to the information that you need.
All right. And then you talked about a handbook for the nutrition service department. Will that come before the board then? How is that going to?
I'll let Andrea talk to that.
Okay.
Yeah, so the handbook, depending on what is in it, Jenny Wright, HR generalist, and I are going to review it. If it is something that does need to come to the board, versus it being, if it's more just safety measures that we're already having to do anyways because something else says that, then we wouldn't take it to the board. But if there's some other policy in there, they are already covered under the classified handbook. So this is more going to be like she said, the no nail polish, things that are procedures that should have been followed because of safety rules anyway. So just having that laid out so we can hand it easily to every nutrition services employee and they have those rules right there.
Thank you. Do any of the board members have any questions? I don't hear any. So Tracy, thank you so much for this report, and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
We appreciate all you've done for the Lewis Central kids.
Thank you so much, Doreen. I appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Are there any other reports?
No, ma'am. Ready for discussion items.
All right. We'll move on in our agenda. Discussion item 8.01, applications and related exhibits to rezone school property.
Yeah, so I'm gonna tee this up for Joe and any questions that may come to the board or anything he wants to add, but just in lieu of our very lengthy meeting. We mentioned this earlier when working with the city on some of the things that we need for our construction projects. It was brought to our attention that rezoning our properties would be conducive to a lot of things. One of those examples we heard earlier, potentially our parking, which requirements we had earlier were to add a really significant lot, but rezoning all of our properties to the same zoning, it behooves us for a number of things, height considerations for the fly loft of the auditorium, and even, excuse me, even things to do with the depth of the orchestra pit. So the application needs obviously board approval before it goes forward. We'd like to get that rolling. It only helps the school district. In addition to that too, just to be clear, we are in the process of purchasing another piece of property that I can talk about public at this point, although we're not discussing that in this item, but that is part of this application as well. So it will organize and rezone all of our properties connected right there on Harry Langdon and allow for a better situation with our construction projects and many other things going forward. So that's me teeing it up, Joe. Add whatever you want to add, then we'll see what questions the board has.
Certainly. Thank you. Okay, so, we've been in communication with the city for a long time now, and Christopher Gibbons is their planning manager. He's been real helpful. He's really helped our entire team kind of move through this process, which kind of came to light maybe 2 weeks ago. And so it looks a little confusing, but I'll try and make it simple. There initially was the rezoning application. We are zoned C2 on the high school campus. That's a commercial zoning, and R1 on the middle school and on the federal property. So neither of those are a good zoning classification for us, for a school. And this is, everyone, I encountered this in every jurisdiction I work in. No code that I've worked with has ever developed an educational setting. And so with that being said, they're going to switch us to administrative professional, AP. And that's what they do with schools, churches, hospitals, and kind of civic uses. So it gives you the largest amount of flexibility. It fits our classification of use. And so we are going to follow their recommendation and rezone from C2 and R1 to across the board AP. And we own 53 and a half acres on the high school and middle school. And then as Dr. Cano said, there was a additional piece of ground at about an acre and a half. So we're looking at about 55 acres of rezoning. However, then the second item listed is your text amendment application. What this does, it is related to the planned development application as well. So these two together say to the city, look, we know we're applying for a zoning classification, but even this zoning classification won't meet our needs. As Dr. Cano said, height being one of them, signage is actually another one of them. And so what the text amendment application does, it simply states, look, we're looking for the city to allow us to submit a planned development application. So we're going to submit these two concurrently. The text amendment and the plan development are going to go in together because it'll save us about 2 months on the back end. And the application, if approved tonight, will go into the city for tomorrow, June 16th, for a July 14th meeting for the Planning Commission. And all three applications will be heard at once, which is good. And then after that, there'll either be 2 or 3 readings before the public hearing for city council approval. So the exhibits related to this aren't on your screen, but they're quite simply the same site plans and kind of some of the stuff Will went over. We keep it simple. We don't give a ton of detail, but we do identify that we need a height waiver. We need a signage waiver. And we give them a chance to look at our campus and how we've planned our campus and to comment and to basically approve our plan that says, yes, 70 feet is okay, even though AP zoning only allows 50 feet. So this is the path laid forward, laid down for us by the city. It feels like the right path, and it's been a very cooperative effort with us in the city thus far. And so I'll answer any questions that everybody has, but this is kind of the fruition of what we've heard from the city the entire time, and it does offer us a lot of benefit to go down this path.
Do any of the board members have any questions?
Joe, we're still going to be 3 separate parcels, just one zoning for the 3 parcels?
Yes, sir. Yep, that is absolutely correct. Unless maybe at a later date, we decide we want to consolidate the properties. Generally speaking, common ownership will allow you to build over lot lines. And so it hasn't been a requirement from the city. So I figure we probably all would agree not to expend those funds unless required to do so.
Are there any other questions?
And this doesn't talk about any traffic flow or surface types or anything like that, correct?
That is correct. Those sorts of decisions or reviews will happen at the building permit submittal time. And maybe I will say this, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but we're trying to arrange to have a conversation with the city again about the trail. Okay, so I want everybody to understand that what we're submitting does not indicate anything different than what's out there today as far as a trail alignment. That is a discussion for a different day. But so that's what's being presented is kind of what's there today. This is not the mechanism for the trail discussion.
Are there any other questions or discussion? Okay, we'll go on to 8.02, TCI Social Studies Online Resources Renewal.
And I believe we have Dr. Jones with us tonight, so I will turn this over to her for this presentation.
I don't think she's here, so I'll take over if that's okay.
Absolutely okay.
Yeah. What this represents is a renewal of the online resources for all of our social studies programming in grades 6 through 12, with the exception of U.S. government. We had plans to bring before you a whole new adoption because of the new social studies standards at the state of Iowa. But COVID put a screeching halt to that work that was going on. And so this is a 1-year renewal as a stopgap measure to give us time then to get after the materials review process for 612 social studies more completely. So this is not a change in materials and online resources. It's just a 1-year extension of licensing to the resources that we're presently using.
Do any board members have any questions? Okay. We'll go on to the next agenda item, 8.03, bids for summer projects.
Jeff Carper and I had been discussing these after we presented to the board the full list of summer projects. And I tabled this knowing that Randy was coming on. I tabled this from our last meeting, and Jeff and I thought that it'd be a good idea for Randy to come in and get familiar with these and maybe even make a few changes or additions. I think he's had some time in his few days that he's been on the job. He's doing some yeoman's work, and so there were a few changes to these things, but these are the pieces of the summer projects, the overarching pieces that you all have seen in the past, but with board approval, since these require we do bids on these because they're over the $10,000 mark. So I'll be quiet and let Randy do the overarching comments on these things.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Knost. So the rooftop unit for the middle school, that was installed in 2003, and that needs to be replaced. But just so you know, lots of conversations have been happening here at the round table in Jeff's office with Jeff. So he's made himself available, and Mike and Mark. So it's a team effort. It's not just Randy. So it's been drinking from a water hose or a fire hose is what I told Dr. Knost, but I'm having a really good time. It's a blast. So it's all good. But this rooftop unit, it serves the gymnasium. And one thing that we need to know is, or you need to know, is that it's not only heating, it's cooling also. So the footprint of it changes a little bit. So we have compressors that are going to be installed, will come with this unit. So the electrical needs to be upgraded. The temperature controls, that's CMI, they need to be included, and the roof curb needs to be included. And so that's the final price, was adding it, the $7,500 to Carter's. So that's that one. And the COVID question, it extends its reach to us. And so the conversation has been, what does the manufacturing facilities look like? Are they behind? Are they back up and running? We've got some answers to that. We don't have all of them. I can tell you the high school bleachers, that's the next one to talk about, but that might happen over the Christmas break. I have yet to hear back from Mr. Townsend, but we're making connections. And so I appreciate everybody's effort. But that's the rooftop unit one. The next one's the high school visitors side bleachers. We already did the small gym bleachers and the high school home side. So now we're doing the visitor side, and then that will be completed. So we recommend going with Townsend on that. And I was told we reached out to other vendors for pricing, but no bids. Okay. So that's that. The parking lot and the driveways, I do have their quote in front of me. And what we need to do is, well, you can see each year we address the needed asphalt. We received 3 bids, not 2. But I have their quote in front of me, and knowing where Anderson Construction, the route that they're going to take, and they've already had a couple of side dump trucks I've seen this afternoon come by. They're coming in at the high school entrance, the main entrance, and coming around by the tennis courts and the football field, and turning right there at the corner where you would go and walk into the football stadium. They're turning there to go to the job site to put the surcharge on. So I know the asphalt company, Century Asphalt, they've got some documentation on their quote that where they're going. And that's one of the areas right over there by the tennis courts. And so we approve these tonight. I'll be on the phone with Asphalt and Century Asphalt, and we'll walk it out because we don't want to do the repairs where all the parking or the trucks are going in the parking lots. So that would be a bad idea. So we're going to coordinate that. And Jake Guther's been helpful on that. So that's the parking lots. Purchased the 3 buses. Oh, wow. I learned a lot about buses, let me tell you. So Mike's been very helpful. So I appreciate Mike's time as well as Jeff sitting down. I met the gentleman from Bluebird. He came in and answered some questions, but these are replacement buses. So we have a request in for 2 84-passenger buses, and that includes air conditioning and storage underneath for activities, and 1 passenger lift bus. And we recommend going with Bluebird. The next item, the high school room 310. This is a request from programming from Joel. We want to take a room 310. It's up on the 2nd floor at the high school and do a little bit of demo in the middle of this room, and then add a wall. So that's what that is. Anderson Construction. Go with Anderson. That's what we recommend. The next item is to replace the middle school hallway carpet with a vinyl composite tile. So when you walk into the middle school at the main entrance there, all that carpet from the commons right there by the admin office going towards the auditorium, take that carpet out, and then going the other direction towards the gymnasium, taking all that out. That's a request and a project that Jeff had already put together. And so we recommend going with Kelly's Carpet of Omaha for that $18,195. And then a high school carpet replacement for 4 rooms. It's time. That's just a wear and tear, and it's just time. So we recommend going Sherwin-Williams floor covering for that $16,000. But with also, just know, again, I need to reiterate that COVID-19, the supply chain lines, it's affecting this. So the timing of it, of the schedule I'll put together, if it can happen now, or do we do it over Christmas break? I'll put a schedule together if everything's approved and have a conversation with the successful vendors, and we'll have a plan. But I won't move forward with anything that without talking to the principals either. So if we're in the school and they say, hey, we can't do this until Christmas, or supplies are 3 months out, then we'll regroup and figure out a plan and schedule and make sure everybody's on the same page. So,
Randy, if I could just interject one thing back up on the buses, I just wanted to point out that so nobody I know the board doesn't think this, but anybody in our audience doesn't think that you came on last week and decided, hey, let's go buy 3 buses.
That's true.
This plan really predates both of us. Well, except for you as a board in your board member role, but this has been the plan of the district that was adopted by my predecessor and Jeff in the past to keep our fleet. And I'm sorry, I can't recite off the top of my head. I don't know if you've committed that to memory yet, Randy, on how many buses we have in our fleet, but this keeps the recycle in. Buses are used, they run a lot of miles each year. So I just wanted that to be clear for anybody that might be listening in, that it wasn't just hey, why not? Let's jump on board and add 3 buses. It's part of an plan previously decided by the district.
I do have a question about buses. At one time about seatbelts.
This includes seatbelts.
Buses have seatbelts in them?
Yes.
Okay. And are we getting other buses retrofitted? Is that required?
At this time, a retrofit is not required. It's only on new buses that were after October 1 of 2019.
Okay. Does any other board member have any questions?
Nope, he answered them.
And will we have other ones still coming, bids that are going out, still coming up the next board meeting, which would be in July, or is this going to be it for now? For the summer?
Dr. Kanosh, you want me to answer that?
Please.
It's very fluid.
Okay.
It's very dynamic. So I will talk to Dr. Knost when these things happen. I've met a couple contractors, one about the sealing of the joints in front of the high school. That's come up, and so I met with a contractor today to get some pricing. So that's a very good question, but that's something that budget concerns. So Andrea, Dr. Knost, we'll have to sit down, and I don't know if we have any money or if we do or don't. Or, so that'll be my approach, Doreen, is to reach out to them and the principals. And I've already met with the principals of every facility, and I've got a list going, but it's fun. And so
I just didn't know from the list that we were presented about things that are coming, that want to get done this summer, if this is a bulk of it or if there's still other items.
Yeah, I'd like to think that this is it, but I'm going to never say never. And I think that front of that high school, sealing those joints, if we can get that done, that'd be something we need to get done before Christmas. So would that be a summer job? I don't know. Depends on schedule, COVID, and Dr. Knost and Andrea. And I sit down and say, hey, yeah, we have money or we don't have money, then it won't be, right?
Okay.
Yeah, most importantly, understand that obviously the first factor is going to be budget and what our budget can handle. I mean, based on what we've prepared in the budget that the board's already approved going forward. So, Randy's a fresh set of eyes, and as he, he's taking the reins in that field. So when he comes to me and says that he thinks something is a concern, something's more pressing, as he said, the project list could be fluid. It could be that we wait on something and anything that's under 10,000, of course, that we can adjust that accordingly, staying within budget between myself and Andrea and what Randy suggests. But anything going beyond the 10,000 would obviously come back to the board for board approval.
Okay. Do any board members have any questions on these? Otherwise, we will move on to the next agenda item. Okay, hearing none. We'll go on to 8.04 2020-2021 student handbooks.
So I've got all of our head principals with us tonight, really for the most part to answer any questions that you may have. As you know, they've submitted their handbooks to you with the changes. And I don't think anything is overly significant. There are just some key pieces, and I did tell the principals that if they wanted to just state a few overarching comments prior to any questions, they could do that. So it looks like since Dave has pulled up preschool first, we'll let Erica share any comments she may have regarding the preschool handbook changes.
Yeah, most of the changes that we made were to align them with the elementary handbook because there were two different things in each handbook. So we tried to just align that so that they matched. Other than that, there weren't any big significant things. Of course, we're looking at attendance, assuming that we go back as normal. But, we understand that that will have to be looked at should COVID continue or whatever. So overall, there isn't, I don't think there's a lot of changes to the handbook, just some main, just some wording there for the preschool handbook.
Mostly wording and adjusting how things are stated, and as you said, better aligning to the elementary handbook. Correct, Erica?
Correct.
This is Bob, and thank you, Eric. I think you segued into something that I saw when I read through all these handbooks today. There is a lot of differences in how the handbooks are prepared and how everything's listed. I mean, if I was a parent reading these, it looks like they're all coming from four completely different ways of looking at it. It'd be nice if we could more streamline them and make them look more the same. And I don't mean the way they're prepared. It's just, I mean, tables are all different.
Right. And I think that would be something that we could work on as a building, as building admins the next year. I just took what was already in place and just revamped it for this year. So I don't think that was something that we talked about aligning, but I definitely think that's something in the future we could look at, because I know Dana and I really tried to make the elementary one, for both buildings, and we could, eventually maybe put the preschool one into that as well. So it's, true elementary.
Yeah, I really thought that was, that was part of the effort that Dana and Erica took on here, with a little bit of alignment there. And I know there's obviously some pretty drastic differences between the secondary and the elementaries, but I think some consistency in the future, Bob, I think that makes sense for them to consider going forward, and maybe it's already moved a step in that direction with what's being presented. Thank you. Having said that, we'll, if there are no more questions specifically for Erica, and you can jump back anytime if somebody.
Just one, if I could, Eric.
Sure.
I was looking at the bullying and harassment part of the pre-K K1 section, and it says that
Bob, you cut out. Bob, I think you're on mute.
I'm sorry about that. I was looking at, how they have to write down their complaint, and it also says that it's a sexual harassment complaint. They have to address the person they're filing the complaint against. I guess I'm very concerned that that's sort of the process, that we would have a student have to make that complaint to a teacher or somebody of authority at the school, and that we wouldn't automatically sort of take that out of their hand once that's been pointed out to us.
Right. We got this directly from Lori Teese, is where it came from. She gave us this information that this was the policy that the district followed. So that is kind of where we got the grievance procedure from. Dana and I both did. So when we emailed her, that's what it came up. So, I mean, at my level, I don't have tons of this happening. Usually it's, usually I do take it over when they do happen. So I think that would be more of a question that maybe Lori could answer for us.
I agree, Erica. I think there's a few areas in our handbooks that we needed to defer to the district level just to kind of shore some things up. There was one about medication at school, some volunteers at school that came from the district level. So it might be good just to clarify that with those folks.
And those are actual board policies that are quoted there. So would we be looking at policy 105 and 106?
And I think that I'm pretty sure that Lori would add, if she were part of this, that much of how those policies have been put together in the past, of course, have came from with legal review and consistent with statute and such. And I think that I don't know that's on that specific page. I don't know if I'm reading that the right way. But Bob, relative to what you said, I think obviously in Erica's level, when a student has a grievance, that's usually coming to us through the parent, not necessarily directly from the student. Oftentimes the student talks to a parent at home, and then the parent will be contacting the school.
Yeah, and we didn't want to alter board policy, so we just took what was in that and lifted it and put it into the handbook.
Right, right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's some of those, you know, so they're consistent, because that's not it's some of the similar words in high school, middle school, but not necessarily the same. At least the way I read it, I didn't interpret it that way. The other thing is some of the supplies things. I mean, you know, in some places we ask for students to provide sanitizer, but we don't ask for it in every grade. So that seems like sort of a, well, if one grade needs it in the elementary, wouldn't all of them? If one grade needs it in the middle school, wouldn't all of them? They have to supply that supply. So I guess I'm just looking for consistency in how we look at things and what we're asking for across the board. Or that we don't ask at all, which would be my preference.
Yeah, and Bob, to some degree, some of that probably is consistent with or not consistent with, however you want to look at it, but with the grade level and kids being in a classroom all day in one classroom versus secondary kids obviously going to multiple classrooms. And I'm imagining that. I'm not part of the decisions to create the handbooks. The principals manage that on their own, and I think there's some vertical discussion, but I think for most of the part, they're looking at the needs relative to their building, their ages, the makeup of the day, and so on and so forth. But again, those are things that we can definitely consider going forward.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought too. But in kindergarten, it calls it out. In 7th and 8th, it calls it out. But in 1st and 6th, it doesn't.
And the teachers have input into those lists. So, you know, those are what the teachers request that the students bring. And so, I mean, I could ask them why they first grade didn't put it on there. I don't know. I allowed them to decide those things.
Well, and it might be an issue this year in finding those items.
Right. And we will have it, you know, across the building, we're going to be more intentional with hand sanitizer and all of that anyway. So just due to the COVID.
I think too, it's important to note that as we have those class supply lists, we don't require anyone to bring every one of those materials. We do have extra supplies that we provide for students who do not bring them. So definitely something we can look at. Thank you for bringing that up. But those aren't students are able to bring what they can, and we can supply what they don't have.
I understand completely.
Dana, why don't we go ahead and let you carry any additional pieces forward from Erica's comments just regarding the elementary changes, any overarching pieces that you wanted to point out?
A lot of the elementary handbook changes were just some slight wording. We got some updates from board policy or district policies that we added in there. I think one of the changes that we had, Titan Hill will open our doors at 8:05. That just allows us to start breakfast a little bit earlier and just gives a little bit of extra time. One of the pieces of feedback I've gotten from a lot of parents, and Eric, I'm not sure if you've heard this too, is just how hard it is when parents have students both at Creft and Titan Hill. So even just giving them that 5 minutes might help a little bit for the proximity of the buildings. Doesn't mean our instruction starts any earlier, just our doors open. We removed under homework, we removed that failure to complete homework may result in loss of class credit in a failing grade. The elementary level, that's not something that we typically follow. All of our grades come out of classroom assignments, formative and summative assessments. And then some other minor changes throughout the handbook. Any questions on anything you see?
Okay, with no questions for Dana, we'll move on and have Mandy talk to us about any overarching middle school changes. And again, if other things pop up for the others, you can jump back in while we're continue with this item.
Absolutely. We had pretty minor revisions at the middle school level. The one policy that had been brought up a few times this year was biking to school. And when I kind of asked, it had been in practice for a long time that just due to the traffic concerns on Harry Langdon, we asked that students did not bike to the middle school. So we just updated the handbook to kind of be in line with that. The other big change is we just updated our rubric for student offenses. And actually that was kind of in effort to make it look a little bit more like the high school and to be a little bit more understandable for kids. Not something that we want to talk about a ton, those disciplinary things, but we want to make sure that when they do happen, it's very clear as to what the consequence is and why. So just kind of more of a communication type thing. In the future, we actually talked about hopefully maybe moving forward, paring that down a little bit, maybe combining some things. But for right now, we just wanted for sure to make it more easily understood by everybody when things do come up. So those are kind of our big changes, not a ton. I know we worked on it pretty significantly last summer. So other than that, if there are any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, we'll go ahead and have Joel talk to us about any overarching changes at the high school level.
We didn't really have any significant changes either. The only changes are in red font. The first deals with attendance policy, and that's actually based on school board policy 101.14, talking about absences and credits. Our practice has always been when we deny a credit appeal that results in a failing grade. Happens very rarely. We exhaust a lot of different avenues before we ever remove credit, but it's needed to be in place. And I think my impression is the intent of the school board policy is if you have excessive skipping or absences, that could be a possibility. Very rare it happens, but it does. You'll also see a little bit of a repeat for tardies because we can have the excessive tardy too. Not everybody likes the 7:35 start. In the AM. So some kids will not only have a little bit late, but will be extremely late. Again, very rare it occurs, just cleaning up some language. Probably the most significant has to do in the section related to tobacco. If we've had significant abuse of tobacco by a student, we've at times used our substance abuse course. State of Iowa, in conjunction with some other agencies, have released a tobacco cessation class. We did pilot that with a couple students last year. A couple things, just a side note on that. The new trend, obviously, that I think we're all aware of or we hear about or hear people talking about is vaping. We had a significant decline in vaping last year, but one of our responses as we not only ratcheted up our sweeps and searches and things like that was, what are we going to do in response to a kid who maybe, for lack of better terms, hooked or somewhat even addicted? We've had kids who we've caught like 3 times and they've just said, I just can't stop. And so, we've got to have something, maybe not always in lieu, but in addition to a consequence. Hey, we'll reduce that if you complete this course. And it's to us, it's a great avenue to explore. Like I said, we've only done it with a couple kids. We thought it's been somewhat successful, but we don't know because we ended up getting out of school with COVID. So we don't know how that impacted things. But that's really kind of, if there's any area we'll continue to investigate. And I think in collaboration with the middle school, that's that alternatives to a traditional consequence or an additional kind of using some of those mistakes as a learning experience. So that's really those 3 items is all we had.
Any questions for Joel or collectively any of our principals on the updates to the handbooks?
Yeah, the only thing I saw really on the high school one was, again, some of those languages around the harassment stuff, but have them make sure they take a look at your teacher lists and your maps and those kind of things and your coaching assignments. There's a lot of inconsistency and a lot of those people aren't doing those jobs now.
Yeah, we've been kind of going back through that on where some of those things are at. But those are definitely things we need to keep an eye on. And the harassment stuff, I was just checking too, as Dave mentioned, that's probably something we need to talk about, because we had a committee a couple of years ago revisit kind of our policy for handbooks on bullying and harassment. And I think we cleaned up some of the language then. But there's also some language in the school board policies on that also. But we definitely need to take a look at that.
So do any board members have any questions? Okay, we will go on. Thank you all. Going over the student handbooks, we'll go on to 8.05 2020-2021 student fees.
Yeah, a really easy agenda item to present tonight. We just didn't think it was a good year to consider increasing fees. So the fees are staying the same going forward. You've already heard it does include the 5-cent increase in the meals across the board. And you heard Tracy explain that that's relative to a whole different scenario with how our school nutrition is funded, but otherwise we have not increased prices on student fees across the board.
Yeah, there is a typo on section C, meal prices for lunch for adults. It's typed at $2.85, and I think it's supposed to be $3.85.
Okay. Yeah, we'll look into that and make sure that that's correct.
And the $3.85 was what her presentation had.
Yeah, that appears that would be correct.
Do we have any board members that have any questions or want to discuss anything? Okay. After student fees, we'll go to 8.06, Street Smarts Driver Education Contract.
Somewhat the same thing, just a renewal of the contract. I think it was up this year, multi-year contract. This extends us, I believe, for 3 school years, and there were no significant changes to the contract.
Did that get suspended with COVID? Did we have students, I mean, I would think since school was out, did they suspend this also?
Driving, yes.
Okay. Okay, do any board members have any questions? Okay. Our next item agenda, 8.07, 2020-2021 Classified Employee Handbook.
And I will turn that over to Andrea.
So on the classified handbook, there's just a couple of changes. The bereavement leave was a leave that we changed for the teacher's master certified contract. So it just adds out of their 7 days that one of the days they can use for anyone that's not listed. So it's only immediate family that's listed. So they can use it for that. The other item is for vacation leave for the 2020 school year. Any vacation days will not be forfeited until August 31st of 2021. Since right now, employees are not using vacation leave, obviously, with a lot of people canceling, we would like to extend that leave to give them an option to use it for another part of the year. versus having all of our employees be gone at this time. And those are the only changes for the classified.
Do we have any board members that have any questions? Okay. 8.08.08 Administrator Contract Provision.
Also, we'll defer to Andrea for this.
So just a few changes on this as well. Again, the bereavement leave, making that match. Also, a couple of changes in the wording of the immediate family, like such as wife and husband being changed just to spouse. And vacation leave was always listed in just individual contracts. We took that and put that into the actual administrator contract provisions for the administrators that do have vacation. And then also giving them the opportunity to use their vacation days as well until August 31st of 2021 for this contract year only. We updated the market factor adjustments. And then the other addition is the cell phones. So this would allow all the administrators, with the exception of myself, the business manager, to be given the choice of a district provided cell phone, which we already do. And the new one would be to have a stipend instead, where they would receive $40 per month for this, instead of the district providing the cell phone. And there's an appendix B that goes along with that and just states the stipulations of receiving the stipend. And that is all the changes for the administrator contract provisions.
Do we have any questions or discussion from the board members? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go on to the 8.09 Superintendent Contract Extension.
Yes, so obviously this is my contract, and it's coming to you for a couple of reasons. One, because would be an extension to keep it as a 3-year rolling contract, which is, I think, been practice. It's practiced just about everywhere. I think it's been practiced in LC in the past too. I'm not asking for a raise. In fact, I would reject a suggestion of a raise. There is a proposed addition to some vacation days, but I want to be really clear that that's not in trade-off for no raise. There are a couple of points about that. I would, even if the board is not okay with the additional vacation days, I would still not be asking for a raise for this contract. And the vacation days, while obviously there's a per diem cost for me, there's no additional cost to the district for vacation days for a couple of reasons. First of all, we don't hire a substitute superintendent for me, so there's not added cost there. Second of all, I cannot accumulate days and have the district buy them back at the end of my contract. Some school districts do that, and so it benefits superintendent to have more vacation days pile up. We don't have that, so just want the public to be clear on that. Additionally, I don't know that my contracts have always had 25 vacation days. They have 20 here. So it just was the possibility of aligning that to what I'm used to. To give you an example of the 20, I think I've used 7 this year, and the year is about to end. We can carry them over for a month, or there's the extension. And I am taking vacation next month, so I will use some of those. But just to be clear, that's not anything that is any kind of a demand from me whatsoever. Just would be a nice gesture to have in the event that I need them, since I do still have, obviously not being from the area, my extended family all live elsewhere. So on holidays and such, it's nice to be able to travel and spend a little more time with seeing my extended family. Otherwise, the contract is no different than what it was a year ago when the board approved it.
Is there any discussion from any of the board members?
No, I'm good with the changes that we're looking at to propose.
I'm okay with it.
I'm good.
Hey, real quick on the $40 stipend. I was just trying to find some information on it. That is classified, I believe, as income for an individual. So what they actually would see would not be $40.
It is actually is added to the, it is per the IRS guidelines, a stipend will be identified as a non-taxable fringe benefit. There's stipulations in the Appendix B that requires them to show us proof that they are spending more than $40 on that cell phone, and that their percentage of the district use would cover that the $40.
Okay, so to be audited.
Yes.
Okay, and then I'm totally okay with the vacation discussion as well. So, thank you.
Okay. Travis, did you have anything? All right. I think we've hit everyone. So if everyone's okay with this, we'll go on to agenda item comments and suggestions from the audience. And there are none.
Yep. 10.10, 8.10.
No, there's no 8.10, Bob. That is relative to the hearing that happened on agenda item number 4. When you see 10.10 down there,
correct,
that is the follow-up from the hearing item, agenda item number 4.
So we good? All right, we'll go on to action items. 10.01, applications and related exhibits to rezone school property. Can I get a motion, please?
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the rezoning of our school properties.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Houston.
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer.
Yes.
Mr. Weilich.
Yes.
Ms. Adkins.
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks.
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle.
Yes. 10.02, TCI Social Studies Online Resources Renewal. Could I get a motion, please?
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the TCI Social Studies Online Resource Renewal Proposal.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Stoffer.
Yes.
Mr. Weilich.
Yes.
Ms. Adkins.
Yeah. Yes.
Mr. Hendricks.
Yes.
Mr. Houston.
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle.
Yes. 10.03, bids for summer projects.
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion we approve the bids as laid out for the summer projects.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Weilich.
Yes.
Ms. Atkins.
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks.
Yes.
Mr. Houston.
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer.
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle.
Yes. 10.04, 2020-2021 student handbooks. Can I get a Motion, please.
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve the student handbooks as presented.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Vote, please.
Ms. Atkins,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. Houston,
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer,
Yes.
Mr. Wylage,
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel.
Yes. 10.05, 2020-2021 student fees.
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion that the board approve the fees as outlined.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Just real quick, we need to clarify that fee change, but that's the only thing. That one, the 285 to 385.
I think we could, the only reason I didn't recommend a change is that it looked like a math error, which obviously we would have an obligation to fix that regardless. So
Okay.
maybe if it's just noted that, that obviously it'll go through with the correct math.
Okay.
In our presentation, it showed the 385.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Vote, please.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. Houston,
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer,
Yes.
Mr. Wylage,
Yes.
Ms. Atkins,
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel.
Yes. Street Smart, or 10.06, Street Smarts Driver Education Contract. Can I get a motion, please?
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve the contract with Street Smarts Drivers Education, 3 years.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Houston,
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer,
Yes.
Mr. Wylage,
Yes.
Ms. Atkins,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel.
Yes. 10.07, 2020-2021 Classified Employee Handbook.
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the handbooks as outlined.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Stoffer,
Yes.
Mr. Wylage,
Yes.
Ms. Atkins,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. Houston,
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel.
Yes. 10.08 Administrator Contract Provisions. Can I get a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the administrator contracts provisions as outlined.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Wylage,
Yes.
Ms. Atkins,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. Houston,
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer,
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel.
Yes. 10.09 Superintendent Contract Renewal. Can I get a motion, please?
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the superintendent's contract as presented.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Just to clarify, that does include the 5 extra days, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Vote, please.
Ms. Atkins,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. Houston,
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer,
Yes.
Mr. Wylage,
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel.
Yes. 10.10 Specifications, Proposed Plans, Form of Contract and Estimated Cost for the Lewis Central High School Auditorium and CTE project. Can I get a motion, please?
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the specification proposed for the plans, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Lewis Central Community School District High School Auditorium and CTE project.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Vote please.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. Houston,
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer,
Yes.
Mr. Weilich,
Yes.
Ms. Atkins,
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle.
Yes. Our next board meeting is actually July 20th and over a month because we will not meet that first week of July because of the holiday. Unless there's something else that comes up and we need a Zoom meeting. Is there anything else, Dr. Knost?
No, part of the reason this meeting is as extensive as it has been it has to do with the fact that we're not going to be together again, potentially for another month. And as you stated, if there are any pressing issues, then we'll try to call a quorum together via Zoom. But we don't have any anticipation for that right now, and we think I've already got half the meeting set up for the July meeting, so we should be good.
Okay. If there's nothing else, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
And all in favor can say aye, or you can leave the meeting and we know that you want to, that you agree with leaving the adjourning the meeting. Have a good holiday.
You too. Thanks.